first session was. That was absolutely fabulous, Dawn. So for those of you that know me, you know that diversity is really, really important to me. And why is that, you might say? Some of you know my history. I graduated from NYU. I was a double major, computer science and mathematics, way back when. I'm not going to tell you what year. But so you would think that diversity is kind of like a natural topic for me. Now, when we talk about diversity, it's kind of interesting because it really encompasses so many different things. Diversity is not just a male-female thing, right? It has to do with ethnic background, race, nationality, disability, sexual preference, and the list goes on, religious differences. So therefore, how do we create an environment that's all embracing to be able to incorporate this level of diversity within our organizations? Now, interestingly enough, I always felt that I was kind of outside of that discussion point. Now, you might say that's kind of odd. How can I be outside of the discussion point since I am a woman in IT and I also followed STEM curriculum when STEM was not very popular? Actually, when I graduated, I was one of 3 women that graduated in that particular course, and there was over 300 students that graduated. So do the math, 297 were men. Now, if you ask me, did I ever think twice that there was anything different or odd? Not at all. I just followed my dreams, which I think is such a critical thing and a valuable lesson for us to kind of hang on to. I also feel that the staffing industry is a little bit outside of the conversation. Now, again, we might scratch our heads and say, why? Why outside? Staffing industry, we're the ones that are placing the talent. If you take a look at it, we're responsible for a majority of the talent that's being placed out there. So we should be right in the middle of the discussion. But in reality, what happens in the staffing industry is that we're kind of reacting to what the client needs and demands are. So we don't necessarily have a chance to play that proactive role. So I'm going to share some ideas later on to kind of talk about what can we do proactively so that we can embrace diversity. Okay, so going back a little bit to my history. Now, it's kind of hard not to get emotional as I stand here and talk to you about 2 men in my life that really helped and shaped and mold me. To the left, you see my dad, who's clearly my hero and my mentor in life. And then to the right of that, you see a picture of my uncle. Now, my father, Gaetano Forzetto, migrated to the US in 1958. And my uncle, Vincenzo Compagnino, migrated to the US in 1971. Of course, they came with, my mom, Enos, and my aunt, Irene. And what's interesting is that my father in particular barely had a high school degree. I think he got to freshman year, if he was lucky. And the one thing that he valued the most was education. So even though he himself did not go to school to all the different levels, I think he's the wisest man I ever met in my life because he was always current as far as information, technology, what was going on, and he instilled that in us from when we were children. The same thing with my uncle. My uncle pretty much followed in the same stride as my dad. And so it was kind of interesting to see how they pushed education with having 4 daughters. Now, let me not lose the sight that the fact that they were Sicilian men that came here in 1958 and 1971 were clearly male-dominated society, and the role of the woman wasn't necessarily to further their education or think about career enhancement. But this is what they saw as the secret sauce to the success of their kids, and they really pushed hard. So I would call them, girl power supporters way before girl power supporting actually existed. The other beautiful thing is that we grew up in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. So when you talk about diversity, to the left and to the right of me, all my friends and family, they came from all likes of life, right? So different sizes, shapes, and colors. But again, we didn't necessarily look at that as being unique. What brought us together was the fact that we migrated to this country, and that the immigration process was really what kind of drew us together as to family, not our race or our color or our difference. So that's the valuable lesson that I hope America kind of goes back to basics, not to turn this into a political discussion. We don't want to go there, but that we remember the roots, the fact that immigration is really what established and made America. So that's why I never felt that I was part of the diversity conversation. I just followed my dreams. I followed and I did what I wanted to do with my life because my father always used to say, if you can dream it, you can do it. I think he actually started doing that or saying that way before Walt Disney ever said that expression. I think my father should have claimed that as his. But the wonderful thing about the story is that if you look at the four of us, between my sister Sandra and my two cousins, Francesca and Maria, we are the first of the Frizzetto and Compagnino family to graduate from college. Now again, I never thought that this was a tremendous accomplishment, but it was because when you look at it, we had so much diversity issues that we dealt with that we didn't even know that we were dealing with it. My dad and my uncle, they worked 3 jobs to be able to provide for their kids, to be able to kind of push them forward. So what does this mean when you look at it as far as women in tech and the impact? The one thing that I have to say about Harvey Nash, and for those of you who are not familiar with Harvey Nash, we do have 3 business lines: traditional IT recruitment, executive search, and then last but not least, the business line that I'm responsible for, which is the outsourcing and offshoring arm. But the nice thing about Harvey Nash is we often do these thought leadership pieces. One is the CIO survey, and actually I'm going to be presenting that tomorrow. But we also do a Women in Tech survey, and we've been doing this in concert with ARA. ARA is Attract, Retain, and Advance Women in Technology. It was an organization that was formed by Jane Gilligan-Hamner from Harvey Nash, and Leslie Vickery from ClearEdge, and Megan McCann from McCann Partners. And the way the birth of this organization really came from taking a look at the CIO survey results, where it showed that women, less and less, year after year, were in the IT sector. So why is that? What can we do to better enhance and attract women to want to stay within the IT sector? In the survey that we just recently conducted, about 700 respondents, what's interesting is the top, and this is men and women that are responding to this survey, the top way that women can advance their career is be your own advocate. 72% said, be your own advocate. This is what you need to do. And close second was being confident, 71%. So now, personally, I could share a story where I remember being first graduating from university. I'm now working at IBM, and I'm there for a little while. And as I'm there, there's a development of a new team that's going to be formed, which was a customer support, customer service function. So this would be somewhat technical, but then also engaged with the client community. So I was fascinated by this job position, and I really wanted to go after it. But now the thing is, I was kind of hemming and hawing and thinking, okay, I know the platform inside and out because I helped build the platform, but I have no management experience, and I also have never worked with the clients. So how can I possibly go for this job? I'm kind of talking myself out of it. And my father hears me kind of debating with myself in my bedroom, and he's like, what's going on? So I tell him, I say, oh, you know, there's this job I really want, but I don't think I'm going to go for it because I'm really not qualified, and I'm kind of nervous, and I'm kind of scared, and I'm giving a ton of excuses as to why I'm not going to pursue this opportunity. My father just looks at me, and he's like, Anna, did you ask? So of course, I felt like the sky opened up and the light shined through, and it was an aha moment for me. Go, no, I didn't ask because I'm afraid to ask. And he's like, what's the worst that can happen? Your manager is going to say, no, you're not ready. So just go for it. Ask him. You know the platform, so what are you worried about that? As far as dealing with clients, you have a good personality. You're not going to have a challenge as far as dealing with the clients. So the one thing is management experience, but maybe you can get some coaching or mentoring from your manager to kind of get you to the next level where you can become that first level manager. He simplified it and made it so easy for me. So now I go into the office, and the good news is I did wind up getting that job. But I lacked confidence, and I was not being my own champion as far as pursuing my next dream in my career. I was always very determined in university, but then why, when I entered the workforce, I had kind of changed my personality where I started doubting myself. Now, when we talk about being confident, actually, interestingly enough, yesterday I had the opportunity to talk to Carol Schindler, and we were talking about being confident, and one of the things that Carol said is, you know, being confident, you can't think being confident. You have to feel it. And that's so true. You have to have that fire in your belly where you are confident in your ability. The one thing that I could say when I relate it back to my father and I take a look at his journey, when he migrated to this country, he came here with a little girl who would have been my older sister. 6 months in, my sister passed away from a tonsil operation. She hemorrhaged on the operating table. My mother instantaneously wanted to go back to Italy because she felt, why am I here? This country has not been good to me so far. But my father, the fear of failure is what drove him. He was not going to come to America and fail. And it was that fire in his belly that kept him in the US. And I think about it, I actually could have been, I don't know, working a farm in Sicily somewhere if I was born there, as opposed to being here in America and being born and raised in New York. So confidence is a key driver. And honestly, when I talk about confidence, confidence affects each and every one of us. It's not just a male-female thing. I think we could all take away a little bit from that. Sharing a couple of the stats from the survey, 41% of the women cite lack of advancement as a top career challenge compared to 26% men. I have to say, when you look at this number, it's actually increased year over year. The next number is even a little bit more staggering. This jumped from 30% to 35% of women said that the IT work environment is an unwelcoming environment. Now, interestingly enough, I just recently had the opportunity to talk to a managing partner of a law firm, a significant law firm based in New York, and where she was sharing with me that it's not so much attracting the talents that's the challenge, it's retaining lawyers. So when she first gets the new group of attorneys that join the organization, it's probably 50% men and 50% women. But when the first year passes, and starting in year 2, that drops down to 25%. The reason for it, it's an unwelcoming environment. And so the women start to bail and decide to go doing something else and maybe work in a different law firm. I'm sure if we were to peel away the layers of the onion, we would probably notice that we could see it's not just IT or legal. I'm sure it would hit many, many, many more other industries and sectors. Also, if you compare that 33% of the women, so a third, wound up actually leaving their jobs based on the unwelcoming environment, or the last stat, which is unfair treatment. I could personally share a story. I remember going for a position where they were looking to expand international business, and this is a few years, almost a decade back, but looking to expand internationally, and I wanted to be involved in that type of career path as far as the next level. And I went to my manager, and my manager said, oh, you know what, timing's not right, not yet, not yet. Okay. Now I noticed a year later that they made some changes and that they wound up promoting some other individuals within the organization. So I go back to my manager and say, hey, I just want to understand what's going on. I really want to do this job, because I never received any constructive criticism as to what I needed to take to change myself, improve myself so that I can get that job. Well, what wound up happening is I kind of noticed, okay, I'm not going to get the job here for whatever reason, based on the culture, based on the environment. So I decided to leave and go on to another job. So it doesn't always necessarily work, but the key is you take control of the situation as opposed to the situation controlling you. So now, looking at the staffing industry, what can we do to kind of help stimulate the interest and stimulate the growth? I have to say, I recently had an opportunity not too long ago with Harvey Nash that we were on a panel with the Chief Diversity Officer for McDonald's. And one of the things that she said was, diversity is inclusion. And I thought that was such a powerful, simple sentence, but very powerful, because most times companies, they look at their normal mode of operation, and then they have this other outside bubble that's diversity. And then they have another outside bubble that's inclusion. And they're not necessarily working at bringing it all together. So I think in the staffing industry, we can definitely impact that. I think it's a matter of asking some of the tough questions, right? And this can make us maybe flex some muscles that we might not want to flex. But asking the tough questions, as somebody comes to you and let's say that they have 15 new requirements, but just asking the simple question, how does this fit into the diversity program that that organization has? This is where we can start proactively helping companies and change their fabric of their organization. Also, I think what we can do is if we start looking at the candidates, being a conduit in being able to help them get to the next level of their career. For us to take a little bit of ownership on the staffing side, where we can try to help position, well, maybe this is a great opportunity for this individual, and help the promotion cycle. And last but not least, but be able to provide some training and coaching and mentoring in how to be more confident in going after and pursuing their jobs and their careers. I think this part is fascinating. I've been in the staffing industry for a couple of decades, and what's interesting to me is with all the recruiters that I've had the opportunity to work with over the years, the recruiters that spend that little extra time in being able to work with the candidate, coach them, prepare them for that interview, give them the confidence to go in the door. And again, this kind of goes across the platform, not just a female thing, both male and female thing. That what winds up happening is it might take that recruiter a little bit more time to ramp up, but guess what? They're gonna have more success and a greater hit rate because they've invested that time up front, as opposed to the recruiter that just kind of starts throwing bodies at an open requirement. So some valuable lessons that we can possibly learn from that. So in a nutshell, when we talk about diversity, diversity is not just me or you, but it's all of us, and I think we can all make a positive impact in being able to change the dynamics of organizations out there. Thank you.